Hey friends, you're with me, Anuradha from learningmilestone.com, and today we are going to create a very simple Python based invitation card program. So, suppose it is your birthday today, okay, and you wish to throw a very nice party to lot and lot of your friends and guests, and you need to have invitation card for that matter, right? And invitation card needs to have date, time, place, and if you wish to make it more personalized, you need to have the name of guest and the host name, right? So, ready to create invitation card in Python? Let's see how it should work. Let's go to REPL to check it out. So if I run this program, I should get something like this, right? So um, name of guest, the message with venue, date, time, and the name of the host, right? Then to another guest, and then to another guest. Now, this seems to be very simple to me if I go to program, right? Let's see how it can be implemented, okay? So if I just maximize this, you can easily see that it's a very straightforward, simple one-line program, which is having triple quotes for multi-line string, and we're just simply printing the message with the name of the guest and blah blah information. Now, do you think this is the right way to have our invitation card, or we need more refined skills, right? If we see one print statement is occupying at least 8 lines over here, and suppose we want to invite at least 100 guests, should we go ahead and copy paste all this again and again 100 times and occupy 800 lines of code where there is so much of redundancy? We are having common information, we are having common message, only the guest name is different. We need something different, right? And that different thing is function, which will help us to reuse our code and reduce number of lines of code. And then we might be using for loop as well. Let's see. So the concepts which we will be using while re-implementing this program are functions, parameters, default parameters. Also, we will be asking name of guest in one list, and so we will be using list data type, and we will be using for loop with list. So ready to learn and re-implement the program? Let's get started. First of all, I'll comment this whole thing out by selecting everything together and pressing Control/. Okay, that helps me to do bulk commenting. Now, let's start by understanding what is function. Okay, so if you know what is function, you can skip this part, and if you don't know, then you need to listen this part very carefully. So, function is a piece of code which is reusable, okay, and which is executed only when we execute it. What does that mean? Let's say you want to say hello 5 times. You can simply say hello by printing hello hello in different lines, or there are multiple ways, right? Now let's say how we will say hello with the help of a function. To create a function in Python, we have to start by def, then the function name. So a function's function is to say hello. So I'll name it as say hello. Let's just have these circular brackets after this. We'll come to their usage later on. These are the placeholders for something called parameters, and then everything followed by colon. Okay, so this is the header of the function, which has def, function name, circular brackets for holding parameters, and colon. Then next comes functions body. Functions body is something where we need to have exactly the same thing which we want to do as part of function. So right now we only want to do only one thing, right? We want to say hello. So I say print hello, right? Now, will I get hello over here on the console when I run this program? Let's run it and see. No, I don't get. So what I meant by this, that functions get only executed when we want to execute them is that there is a piece of code ready to execute, but it is like stored set of instructions in our brain which only get executed when we want to really execute them. So this is stored set of instructions, okay? And to execute these, we will simply call them, okay? And how do we call anything? By its name, right? So we will say hello and pass these circular brackets. Also add these circular brackets, right? So we are calling a function. And when we are calling a function, that means we are executing it. So if I run it, it says hello. Can I repeat this? Yes. How many times? Infinite number of times, right? So that is a simplest function. So let's say we want to personally greet everyone by using their name. I want to say hello Anu, I want to say hello John, I want to say hello Laura. So what should I be doing in that case? I should be using something called parameters. So we'll again go back to this circular bracket and create a placeholder over here, and we'll create pass some variable. It can be anything. Let's say I give it a name. Okay, I can give it a name A, I can give it a name B, anything. Okay, so this is the placeholder for the value which we will be passing to the function, and with the help of this something called parameter, the function is ready to receive inputs. Let's say we use this variable over here hello, and let's say name. Now when we call this function say hello, if we run it like this, what will be the case? It says say hello missing one required positional argument name. Now this function expects one value argument because here in its definition it has one parameter, right? Read, and it expects one input while we call this function, and we can pass any value which gets stored in this variable and in turn passes to the function, right? So if I say hello Laura, I say hello John, right? I can do, I can definitely add more than one line and any number of lines in this function, okay? And it will get executed in one go. Perfect. So that was a small introduction to function and parameter, and let's see how we implement this understanding of our function in our invitation card program. So I'll just uncomment one of the invitation card, and on the top of it I'll add a function def, let's say birthday invite colon. So I have created a header, and what I want to have in this invitation birthday invite function is this piece of code. So I'll select this whole code and press tab so that this fellow goes inside this portion, right? So Python works on the basis of indentation. This is a block code, and anything inside this header, the body needs to be indented inside this. Okay, it cannot remain in the same line. If it is the case, then we'll have an error, indentation error, expected an indented block. So let's press a tab or space bar, whatever you prefer. So if I run this now, do we get the invitation card printed? Let's run this. No, because we have just created a function. Remember, a stored instruction, right? Which gets executed only when we want to execute it. And if I call it, But currently this birthday invite will only create invitation for Amy and not for anyone else. So how do we pass a name or guest name to this function, right? And we know the answer. We just discussed that. And the answer is parameter. So let's say I pass a parameter guest name. So this is a parameter or a bridge which will pass the value to this function's body, and instead of this me, now we can use a variable, right? And to use a variable over here, we need to make use of f string. If you don't know f string, go to my BMI calculator. F string is a way to pass the value or a variable inside print statement or any string. Okay, so we simply pass add f outside a string, and wherever we meet a variable, we give variable name with curly braces, enclosed in curly braces. I'm sorry. So I'll give this. Okay, now our function is expecting one input, and if we don't pass any value to it, it will give us an error, missing one required positional argument. Okay, so we need to pass a value or argument over here. Let's say I want to invite Amy, or let's say I want to invite Joe, I want to invite Laura. All I have to do is function name and the guest name. Now let's go to the second step, where let's say you can create invitation card for anyone. By anyone means for any birthday. Let's say today it was your birthday, tomorrow it is my birthday. I won't reuse this function for my birthday too, but my venue, date and time has definitely changed. What can I do in that case? It's the answer is simple. I can create parameters for these as well and pass it through my function. Let's see how. I'll create a venue. I'll create date. Okay, now I'll just create a day, and then I'll also create timings. Okay, and I'll pass these variable names instead of these hard coded values. So all I need is curly braces and the variable, right? So instead of these hard coded values in the function, I can simply pass this. Okay, now host name must also change, right? So I'll just pass host name also over here. Perfect. So this is a completely flexible function which will create a birthday invite for anyone, okay, on behalf of anyone and to anyone. So but this function definitely needs more information. Now we will run it. It will again give us error because it expects more inputs, right? 4 required positional arguments: venue, date, timing, and host name. And right now we are passing only one information, which is guest name. So in the same order, we need to pass the complete information. Let's say any hotel. Okay, Hotel Leela. Okay, okay. And then we can say venue is done. And then let's say any day, 20 March. Any timing, 12:10 p.m. and host name is, say, Joe this time. Okay, and I'll invite Anu, and I'll just pass this. I'll just change the host names over here. Perfect. So we are ready. Let's get started. So here you go. Dear Amy, dear Chris, dear John, and Joe is inviting you to Hotel Leela, 20th March, 12:10 p.m. Isn't it wonderful that we don't have to go and change all this sort of program, and there's no redundancy, just these lines of reusable codes, and we are able to create so many things, right? Let me make it more convenient with the help of something called default parameters. Every time I'm calling my function, I have to pass some values which are again common across. And so what I can do, I can assign these default values to the parameters themselves, and these are called default parameter values. So let's say my venue over here, I'll pass Hotel Leela. Then day 20th March with the help of equal to, right? So this is the key, this is the value. Then timings, equal to, and then host name equal to, what was that, Joe. Now, even if I don't pass, all it needs is guest name. So even if I don't pass the other values, it will show me the default values. So let's run this again. So in this case, what is happening, there are default values assigned to these parameters, right? These are default parameter values. In case we do not want to pass the values, these default values are taken. But let's say I want to change the venue, okay? Let's say I want to change the venue to Hotel Taj. And I'll run it again. So you see what is happening now, these default values are replaced by the value which user is passing. And I may choose not to pass, just to indicate again. For Amy, it is still Hotel Leela, right? So this is default parameter values. And here we are with the short and sweet code, right? Now, as a part of next stage, okay, let's learn few more concepts, and with those concepts let's remove the guest names from, let's separate the guest names from the program itself, and let's ask from the user which all guest user wants to invite. So let's ask. So I'll just comment this out, okay, and we know how to ask from the user, right? So I'll just create a variable called your guest equal to, using input method, I'll prompt user enter your guest. So I want to ask it in one go, okay, separated by comma. So let's see what we can do about it. Okay, so let me just print whatever user enters. I know it would be a string, and I know this from the explanation in BMI calculator project which we did, right? So whatever user enters gets saved in variable called your guest, and your guest is of data type string, okay? So enter your guest separated by comma, Amy, Jack, Joe. These are the, oh, sorry, your guest, right? It's not in the codes. So run it again, Amy, Jack, Joe. Now I have asked user list of guests separated by comma, and I want to separate them out. From which character I want to separate them out is comma, right? So this can be easily done with the help of one string method called split. Let's apply that, and I'll make a guest underscore list, okay? Whatever is my string, I'll say dot split, where at what character I want to split my string is comma, okay? And let me print guest underscore list. I also want to see the data types, right, of your underscore guest, which we know, right? But let's just see one more time. With the help of type method, I can find the data type of your underscore guest, and with the help of type method again I can find the variable type of guest underscore list. And let me also print guest underscore list. All right, so let's run it. Amy, Jack, Joe. So what happens? Amy, Jack, Joe, which is of data type string, gets converted into class list, gets separated at comma and converts into class list, and then we have Amy, Jack, Joe as a separate string saved in a variable which is of data type list, right? So we have not talked about list in detail, and I would love to dig deep, but I would also like to focus on what is our um, program's agenda to come out with a beautiful invitation card. So, in a nutshell, list is a data type which contains multiple elements which can be of same data type or different data type. In this case, we have used split method to create a list to separate out the list of or name of guest in each element. So guest name is definitely a string because it is in quotes. All right, and what we want now is to invite each of these guests through our function birthday invite. So our primary motto was to pass each of this into the function. So how do we do that? That we can be done with the help of looping. Okay, so we'll be using for loop to go through the list elements. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a list called my underscore list. Just comment it out for some time. And my list, so any list starts and closes with circular bracket, and it can have different elements. So I'll just name apple, kiwi, and orange. Okay, so this is a list which contains three elements: apple, kiwi, orange, and all are of data type string. Now I want to go through, I want to extract each element of this list. For that I can make use of for loop, okay, by declaring a variable for let's say I. In is a keyword for getting the element in the list over here. So for I, okay, I refers to each element at a time. For I in my list, let's say I print I love I. Okay, so what will happen at this point of time? Run. I love apple, I love kiwi, I love orange. So with the help of for loop and in keyword, we are able to access each element separately in the list. So let's apply the same thing to our new list, which is a guest list. So I'll just run this again. Okay, perfect. I'll just remove these print statements now. Now I know the data type of your guest is string and data type of guest list is list, right? And I also know how can I loop through this. Now I have a list, guest list, right? Which contains name of guest separated by comma, something like this, right? And I, instead of applying print statement, I want to call my function over here. What I'll do, I'll say for I in guest list. Okay, so I will refer to each guest at a time. So let me just also change the name of guest for guest in guest list. Okay, so that is a variable name. I can give it any value. And instead of print I love guest, right, I can simply call my function, and instead of passing guest name hard coded, here I can pass the variable which is accessing the guest each time the loop is running. So let's run this again and see the magic. Enter your guess separated by comma, Amy, Jack, Joe. Perfect. So let's remove these redundant things and see how short and flexible the code is now with the help of these things, right? So there is a function birthday invite which has guessed these parameters, and some of the parameters have default values, which means that we do not need to pass these values every time we call a function. So we just need to do away with the guest name while calling a function. Then we also call the function by passing guest name, but what at the end I wanted is to separate out guest name from the program itself. So I asked from the user, enter your guest separated by comma. Okay, so the user entered the comma separated guest name, and we applied string method split on our string your guest, right? And finally, which converts it into a list data type. And then we made use of for loop to go through to extract each guest and then call the function with the guest name. Perfect, right? So I know there are many concepts which has not been touched in interest of time and to keep this program or tutorial on the track. So definitely in my other projects, definitely in my other tutorials, I'll be touching in detail these topics, like more on function parameters, more on list, and more on loops. Okay, so stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and do like my videos. Thank you.